Yeah, you're basically asking what's the solution. And I think also you asked what's a realistic solution, which is different question, right? Um, and, and I guess given our political system, it's really hard to make a tough choice because it means you lose the election. If you can get the support even of this tough choice. So it's very, very difficult. It's like people prefer the slow, long pain to kind of sharp pain. It's actually, Dan Ariely talks about this, right? And it is so true. So right now we're just willing to accept low growth. We're willing to overlook the fact that the European financial institutions are insolvent, and most of them are. We're willing to overlook all of this stuff and, trash for cash, you could call it that. But it seems like the last thing that you need is to lever up these banks and load up some more junk into their balance sheet. So what do you do? Okay, so within the Eurozone, you've got very limited options because you can't depreciate. And that's the easiest thing to do. That's what people have done traditionally, with some exceptions. And Japan is a good one. But that would be the easiest way to kind of put things back into balance would be for kind of a currency moderation. For me, I guess what I would do, and I said this earlier, is focus on the financial institutions. There's just no reason that these banks should have 40x leverage, right? So that's just not healthy. And it's going to cause a problem sooner or later, and probably sooner. So for me, what I would prefer to do is we realize that financial institutions play an incredibly important role in the economy. The people need to finance their investments, and I mean real investments, like plant and equipment and things, innovation. So that needs to be financed. We need liquidity for that. So we need to have a financial system that's strong. Right now, it is not strong. European banks are not making loans to each other. It's hard to get a loan, period, in Europe because basically they're scrambling to put their balance sheet in better order. People say, well, this austerity is killing growth. Well, it's also that firms, because of all the uncertainty, are unwilling to invest. And even if they're willing to invest, it's actually hard to get the financing. So I'm kind of the opinion that the best thing to do is to kind of recognize the role of the banks, to recognize that they've got away with a lot in the past that they shouldn't get away with in the future, and to sit down, collect the information that you need in terms of the health of these banks, the real health, not what's posted in the European stress tests, not what's online with the ECB or the European, the EBA, but to go and figure out what is like the value of their assets and what is the value of the liabilities. And then make some tough decisions in terms of consolidation. And then increase the capital ratio well above what's recommended in Basel III. So then you start out and you do this fairly quickly. You say, this is what we're going to do. We're going to support these as we consolidation. And then we've established at least one pillar, and that is kind of the financial system is secure. Then with security, we can go and do some other things where, and it might be that we have to eliminate some countries from the Eurozone. But we can do that because we've actually gone through the exercise, we've done the risk management, and we know that the banks are secure in actually doing that. So you do that, and then the last thing that you've got to do is basically implement a system where countries can't go offside with real penalties. And what's actually being proposed for this fiscal compact, it doesn't go far enough, in my opinion, There's too many hoops you have to jump through. There's too much leniency. If you're going to have a monetary union, then we know now, right? Now everybody agrees that you need to have some sort of fiscal union at the same time. Now, if you don't want fiscal union, fine. Then take your own currency back. That's fine with me also. So those are the steps. Obviously, the governments cannot continue to overspend. Some of the social programs, generous, and we would just love to do them, has to face the fact that if you go sufficiently offside, then those programs are at risk. So do you prefer to have a more modest social program or no social program? So I think that what people need to do is, and this gets to your point, what's the realistic solution? And ideally, the ideal solution is to sit down with all of these aspects together and come up with a plan that everybody agrees upon, or most people agree upon, and it would be decisive, it would be bold, it would need support across various different political parties, so not just ruling parties, and let's take the tough medicine today. And yes, it's going to be painful in the short term, but almost immediately the uncertainty is resolved. We've got a path, we've got a plan, we know what to do. This will increase future growth opportunities. We will be stronger in the future if we do this. The same applies to the US. The same applies. Right now, it's just not as acute right now because we're not in a financial crisis right now. But you know, as well as I know, that some of the big banks are scrambling right now because they cannot withstand a shock. So if something happens in Europe, that could cause another financial crisis in the US, or US growth slows as it could easily. So we need to do the same thing in the US. So that's kind of the ideal situation. As to what happens, we're largely driven by the political system, and the political system is such that it's very difficult to get agreement on anything. And it's election year in the US, which means nothing is going to happen. After the election, who knows what will happen, because people are worried about the next election. So it's, I had thought during our financial crisis that there was an opportunity to do something, because in the face of a crisis, people tend to act in a way that's different, that they put the country first rather than the party first, and will make some kind of emergency decisions that they might not usually make because of the party line, but they think it's good for the country. And now it seems like you need another crisis. Like, how many crises do we need in order to fix things? What is the goal here? The goal is for us to be on a path for kind of sustained long-term growth with minimum volatility and kind of equitable dispersion of income. I think that's kind of the ideal thing for us to be on, because that will solve so many problems. So that's kind of the goal. And right now, we don't have the infrastructure in place for that to be realistically achieved. And somehow, and I doubt it's realistic, but somehow we need political will, bipartisan political will, to figure out, here are our goals. This is our strategy, and we're going to have some tactics that are tough, but we've got the best interest of the people in the long term in mind.